right, we are live. Welcome, Denise. Denise, you're in Virginia area, you just told me?
West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Yeah,
You got your questions lined up
I do.
for some fun? All right, hit me with your best shot. What's your first question?
Okay, my first question is how do I know that my inspired thoughts or actions are actually coming from my inner being instead of my conscious thought?
Ooh, that's a good question. Repeat it one more time so I can really let that one sink in because that's a good
Okay.
one.
How do I know that my inspired actions or thoughts come from my inner being and not my conscious mind?
So for me, the way I experience inner being guidance, let's call it that, I don't experience it through thought. So for me, I experience it through impulse. And I think a lot of people think that inner being or source communication for most people come as words or as like hearing it.
Right.
Um, but I think that's a bit of a misinterpretation. So for me, the way that I mostly operate is, my first priority is getting into alignment. And then once I'm in alignment, the impulses that I get, I don't question them. I just follow them, right? With
Okay.
the understanding that whatever is coming through from a place of inspiration, and I don't question it. So I think a lot of people, when they question their thoughts, what they're afraid of is maybe making a wrong decision or
Right.
choosing the bad direction or doing the wrong thing. And once you get to a place where you understand that there is no bad decision, there is no wrong thing, there's never such thing as a missed opportunity, then the questioning or the hesitation kind of goes away. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
It does.
Yeah. So it's about understanding that everything you experience, whether it's wanted or unwanted, you're still experiencing that in some way for your own benefit and your own growth.
Okay.
So, yeah. Does that make sense?
It does.
Does that kind
Yeah.
of
I
answer
mean,
your
sometimes
question?
I feel like I want to do something. For instance, last year I got a ticket to go to Bonnaroo. I was super excited. I was going with friends. And then the closer it got and the more it was turning to sold out, I started backpedaling a little bit. And that has some things to do with just anxiety and huge crowds. And then I thought, well, maybe that wasn't just a good idea anyway. Maybe I just got caught up in how they were super excited about it.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
that's
those are the things that I kind of fluctuate with.
and that's a good point because what happens is, I think anxiety and excitement are extremely similar. And I think the only difference is when it becomes anxiety, we're processing it through our inner critic and ego and fear. And when we process it through our inner being, that's when it feels like excitement, right?
Okay.
So I think a lot of people, your inner being is guiding you to experiences that push you outside of your comfort zone because those are the experiences that drive growth and expansion.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people, once that those fears kick in, they hold back. So I think anytime something initially excites you and then, the doubt, the hesitation starts to creep in, my course of action would be to kind of pull up a process like the belief tree process or
Okay.
something where you can explore the fear and work through it. And then once you work through that fear and that fear is no longer there, now there's smooth sailing for you to say, okay, does this really excite me? Or is it just not of interest to me anymore? And then you can back out.
Okay. Great.
Does that make
That
sense?
makes sense. Yeah.
Cool. Very
Yeah.
interesting. That's really good topic and something that I think a lot of people would ask or struggle with. So yeah, good
Yeah.
stuff.
I mean, I daydream and think about things and I think, oh, yeah, that'd be great. But then I think, is it really great? Or am I just
Yeah.
idealizing things?
Yeah. And I love having that awareness that our purpose here is joy and expansion. And you can't experience expansion within your comfort zone. So our inner beings are literally nudging us, creating excitement towards those new experiences. And obviously, these new experiences are going to trigger fears, or they could trigger fears. They could trigger negative emotions, things that we want to work through, because working through those things is what leads to, raising our vibration and being more in alignment and leading us down our path towards more of what we really want.
Okay, cool.
Cool. All right, hit me with another one.
Um, my second question is, am I really lacking contrast in my life, or am I capable of becoming so desensitized to it that I'm not noticing it? And then I'm not really launching any desires from being in that place.
So I think natural desires are like a natural thing. So we're always going to have desire. You can't stop having desire, because if there was no desire, then again there would be no contrast, because there would be no expansion, because there'd be nothing to work towards, right?
Okay.
And when I see desire being suppressed by people, or people think that they have no desire, typically it's fear of moving forward, fear of having desire, fear of being let down, um, things of that nature. So, desire should inherently always be there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
I mean, for now, I'm focusing on getting healthier, exercising more.
Cool.
I'm running again, so my focus is kind of getting to that point where it's great. So am I just so focused on the one thing that I'm paying zero attention to everything
And
else?
like, when you say becoming desensitized to contrast, that's a really interesting way of saying it, because you don't want, so you, this is really good stuff. So being desensitized to contrast, I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. So when contrast happens, there's different levels to which you're going to allow that contrast to trigger you. So for example, somebody who's got a lot of emotions of not good enough, somebody might just say something really small, or they might experience a really small piece of contrast, and that might knock them out of alignment for days. It might bring all of that not good enoughness to the surface. Somebody else who's maybe worked through their emotional baggage and cleared 99% of that not good enoughness, the same contrast is going to create a very, very minimal trigger in them that might just be a speck of dust that they drop off, right?
Right.
And maybe we call that being desensitized to contrast. So I wouldn't say, like, when I think of the word desensitized, I think of like numbness and not processing. So you don't want to get to a place where you're numb to contrast. You want to be at a place where you're not pushing against contrast. And when contrast comes up, you allow that contrast, or that fertilizer, as we call it in the collective, to allow you to work through the perspectives that makes that circumstance so punchy and such a sting for you. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, it does. I mean, and I kind of look at it in the way that in the past, that in my first marriage, I became completely desensitized to behaviors and attitudes. And now I feel like, I mean, I'm in a good place, but am I just blocking things out again because it's habit? And
Yeah.
that's kind of what I worry about. Like,
Yeah, that's almost like cutting yourself off from your emotions or your guidance system, right? So
right,
when circumstance and when contrast happens, it's about realizing and recognizing that those emotions are there, even though they don't feel very good: anger, frustration, sadness, not good enough, whatever it might be. Even though they might feel heavy and not good, they're still there trying to tell us something, right? They're still trying to tell us, hey, you've got these perspectives that are creating the not good enoughness, and you've got these perspectives where you believe you're not worthy. And we're trying to show you that you've got these perspectives so you can shift them and become a more of a vibrational match to who you want to be and what you want to experience, and make
okay,
alignment easier. So you don't want to numb yourself to contrast or the emotions that it creates. You want to allow those things to surface and process them, so you deal with them once and for all.
perfect. Cool. Yeah, I think that that's just always something that kind of is in the back of my mind that I worry about.
Yeah,
Um,
I think a lot of people struggle with that, because I think growing up, a lot of us were taught to suppress our emotions and not tune into our emotions. And even from the Abraham Hicks circles, people think, no, you're not supposed to, tune into those negative emotions. But in reality, you're supposed to allow those negative emotions to be the indicators they're meant to be, so you can use those things in the way they're meant to be used, which is perspective indicators. So yeah, great
Perfect.
question.
Perfect. So my next question is it possible to miss or ignore synchronicities?
I think synchronicities happen all the time. I think a lot of people are not present in their present moments, and sometimes they do miss the synchronicities. However, so let's say there's two types of synchronicities. Let's say there's, seeing a number sign, 1111. There's that type of synchronicity where, you might miss it, and if you miss it, no big deal. I don't want people to confuse missing synchronicity with missing manifestation. So you can't miss a synchronicity and have a manifestation, miss you because you didn't experience that synchronicity. So once you're a vibrational match to a manifestation, then that manifestation has to occur. So if you miss the one synchronicity that could bring you that manifestation, well, the next one's going to show up, or the next one's going to show up, the next one's going to show up. So you can't get it wrong. So once you're a vibrational match to an outcome, to an experience, to a manifestation, the synchronicities are just cooperative components to allow that into your experience, and they'll keep happening until that experience comes into your reality.
Perfect. I'm
Awesome.
always curious. I'm afraid I'll miss something.
Yeah, you can't.
Detail-oriented life, and that's where I go.
Yeah, it's like Abe says, you can't get it wrong, and you literally can. If you're at a vibrational match to trip to Bonnaroo, then no matter what, you have to experience the trip to Bonnaroo.
Cool. So that kind of goes into my next question is, can the love for our reality, like just loving what's happening in our life right now, delay manifestations because we're really focused on what's in the now?
I think it would
Or
do the opposite.
it wouldn't matter?
I think it would allow more in. So remember, the speed at which things manifest relates to your level of resistance. So the more non-resistant you are, the greater the speed at things are going to show up. So the more you're in that state of pleasure, the more you're loving your reality, the more you're a vibrational match to a reality that you love. So the more your reality is going to mirror that experience. So I would say loving your reality and being in that state of pleasure is the key. And even on the last Abraham Hicks cruise, somebody asked, what's the key to enlightenment? What's the key to mastering manifestation? And her response was literally the word pleasure. So yeah, and I like pleasure more than joy. It's because joy feels less tangible. So like pleasure is something like a physical, tangible experience. So I like telling people to reach for pleasure and pleasurable experiences rather than just reaching for joy.
Nice. Cool. And then my last question, I guess, is just about kids and law of attraction. So without going into, I guess, detailed information about law of attraction, how can you foster a better belief system with your kids?
Yeah,
Like, how can you help them get to a place where we're now struggling to get to because we've gone down the wrong path too many times?
and I wouldn't label that as having gone down the wrong path. That's just your cycle of evolution of your path to your growth and expansion. So when it comes to kids, my role as a dad, or my intent as a dad, is to teach my kids to tune into their own inner guidance as much as possible. I think a lot of parents are sheltering their kids in a way that prevents their kids from having certain life experiences. And, as Abraham Hicks says, life experience is the best teacher. And I completely agree with that. So my take on law of attraction parenting is to allow my kids to develop a strong connection to their inner guidance, learn the ins and outs, learn the fine tuning of trusting that inner guidance, so that as they get older, they don't have to learn it when they're a lot older. They have that, alignment is our superpower. Alignment is, the strongest, most powerful thing that we can get access to. So the more I can assist my kids in learning about alignment, getting into their alignment, and having life experiences that teach them to listen to their inner guidance, I think that's what's going to serve them best.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. That's
I
it.
have a teenager, so I'm like wanting him to go out in life a little lighter than most.
Totally. And it's hard as a parent to see our kids, go through contrast or have their own life experiences. But we have to remember that they came here for that too. And as parents, I think it's about, being a role model and living a happy life as much as possible. And hopefully at some point they'll catch on and say, wow, mom, you're really doing a great job at that. I'd love to learn what you're doing to manifest all these things and to be so happy. And that's when they're open to receiving some of those teachings from us.
Alrighty. Well, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a good set of questions. Thanks for playing with me.
Hey, thank you.
All right. Check you later, Denise.
Bye.